Hello, friends, and welcome to another episode of the Exam Room with Nurse Alice, the show where we talk about health and wellness, and we examine everything under the sun and what's going on in the world today. I'm your host, Nurse Alice, and thank you so much for joining me. You guys are what makes the show. I love getting your comments, your questions, your feedback, and really, this is a show for you. So you keep writing in, you keep sliding into those DMs, telling us what you want to talk about and what you thought of the show. Also want to say thank you to blackdoctor.org for allowing the Exam Room with Nurse Alice to have this episode every Monday, 6 p.m., 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And that's right, I said every week. So you guys make sure you tell Alexa or Siri, to remind you of the live so you can join. Put in your calendar all those good things and make sure that you share this Facebook Live. So guys, you have the opportunity right now to start a watch party, share it with some of your besties, your friends, your coworkers, because we're going to have a really great conversation. We have a real great lineup of guests, and you don't want to miss this. And also, as we're getting started, I want to make sure that we thank our show sponsors, Nurse Approved. Thank you to them. So if you are looking for health or wellness products and you want to make sure that it's safe and it's effective and it's efficient, make sure it's Nurse Approved. So you guys visit their website at iamnurseapproved.com. And yes, let's go ahead and get into it, guys, because as I said, this is a show where we take a closer look at health and wellness and things going on in the world today. And so let's do a rundown of things going on in the world today. So I have a list here, and you guys have been great at reminding me of these things. One of the things that it's important to know is that we still have not arrested the killers of Breonna Taylor. Let's bring them to justice, guys. Okay, so that's something that's going on. Also, we have an election happening this fall. It's really, really important that everyone registers to vote. Your voice is so important. Please make sure to register to vote and exercise that right. Also, what's happening in the world today? The economy is closed. It's not closed. You know what? I've actually kind of lost track of what's happening because from the looks on social media, some of these parties, I'm not sure that things are closed. But one thing is for certain, our government is definitely trying to push our children back into the classrooms. So I need all parents, all meemaws, all grandparents, aunties, uncles, community members, please talk to your school officials, talk to your elected politicians, let them know what you want and what you feel is safe. We want to make sure that if our kids are returning to classes, that it's safe, and there need to be resources in place. So not only are our children safe, but our school workers are safe as well. And then also, guys, some of you may have seen this on social media. Jacob Blake, an unarmed Black man shot in Wisconsin. Lots of social injustice happening on the world today, and we're seeing these images, and that can be also very traumatic. So there is lots going on that can contribute to our stress, anxiety, depression, so many different things. And it's really hard to stay strong and to kind of push through this when there's a lot coming at us. So some of today's discussion, I know you saw the title, we talked about checking on your strong friends, because guys, sometimes you may be that strong friend and you're there for everyone else. You're keeping the family together. You're keeping things together at work. But when you are down and out, something's going on with you, you're having an exacerbation of your depression or anxiety. Sometimes it can feel like nobody's checking on us. And there are some of you who, when asked by someone who cares and loves you, and they ask you, hey, Alice, how's it going? How are you doing today? We brush it off, right? Off the shoulder and say, I'm fine, I'm good. Blessed and highly favored, right? Knowing that deep down we're experiencing some sadness, some depression, we are not happy, yet we're not talking about it. And some of why we're not talking about it is because there's this negative stigma that we really, really, especially as communities of color, need to explore and talk more about, because when we can talk about this, remove the stigma, and share what the resources are, we can get the help that we need so we can get to living a life where we experience mental wellness, okay? And so I have some guests that are going to be joining the conversation today, guys. I'm really, really excited to have them. You can see them on the screen there. I'm going to have them wave as I introduce them. And by the way, please start dropping your comments and questions in the chat box. We're going to get to every single question. You guys are going to have some wonderful experts here to talk about their stories. And welcome to everyone who's joining. Timothy from Alabama, thank you so much. Hello, Mary. Damien, thank you so much. Watch your intake of negative stimuli and you will be less depressed. We're going to get to that, Damien. And so please welcome to the show, Chamique Holdsclaw. She's from Queens, New York. Y'all, just in case y'all from New York, Queens. Hey. She is a women's basketball icon. She's a 3-time national champion at the University of Tennessee, former #1 overall WNBA draft pick, 6-time WNBA All-Star and Olympic gold medalist. Woo! From 2000 Sydney Olympic Games. Guys, tremendous athlete. And she's also a mental health advocate who actively supports initiatives that optimize the mind, body, and spirit of individuals through mental health and wellness programming. And she's also the author of Breaking Through, Beating the Odds, Shot After Shot. Welcome, Chamique.
Thanks for having me, Alice.
Okay. And then also another wonderful expert, we have Quina Howell. She is a psychotherapist and the CEO of Empowered to Heal LLC. She provides therapy services for individuals who are dealing with addiction, trauma-related issues, grief, parental challenges, relationship challenges, and domestic abuse. And she's uniquely gifted to help others heal from brokenness and establish wholeness mentally and emotionally to maintain a healthy life. And guys, not only is she gone to school for this, got training and an expert, she's also a bold survivor of domestic abuse, sexual abuse, and an overcomer of many life challenges. She's going to share her personal experience combined with her professional knowledge to help others heal to wholeness. Welcome, ladies, to the show. Thank you for coming to the exam room. So, guys, let me first ask, have you checked on a strong friend lately?
Yeah, definitely. I have.
Yes, you have. Definitely. Yes. Sometimes, when it comes to checking on our strong friends, we need to do that because life can get real busy. You got kids, you got work, you got COVID, all, the money's low. Like you're doing so many different things, juggling so many things that we get so caught up in our own life and affairs that sometimes we forget to reach out to other people, or we assume that they're fine because that question like, hey, Chamique, how you doing? How's your day today? Oh, I'm fine. And then things are, crumbling on the inside. Quina, can you tell us why it is that we sometimes just kind of brush off these type of mental wellness issues, and maybe in that help us understand what's the difference between mental wellness and mental illness? Because I think sometimes we use the words interchangeably and don't really understand. So if you could break that down for us, please.
Right. So first, as far as like people not checking on, not looking into mental health issues, it's usually just lack of knowledge. And one thing I've learned, even when I did a lot of speaking, even in regards to domestic abuse, when people lack knowledge, they kind of just tend to shy away from the subject matter instead of actually trying to seek more knowledge and understanding. They focus more on the stigmas and the stereotypes of the matter, and then they kind of just stay away. They take their hands off. They avoid it. They even are fearful to really engage and really dive into what this could be. And I think a lot of it could just be sometimes fear of if it's going to hit home for me. Is this something that could really hit home for me? Is this something that could directly affect me? Is this an issue that I could be actually struggling with? And so people, they just are afraid. And so they just kind of just do the hands off. And even when I have conversations now, people acknowledge the significance and the need to discuss and seek intervention or promote intervention for others. But they just would rather do the hands-off approach versus actually going in and just really seeing that it's really not as bad. It can be, you can have extreme cases, but it's not as common as they think.
Right. So, and if I could just say for myself that I've done it, I've definitely done it. And the reason I've done it is because if I said one more word, the tears are going to all fall down because it's so emotionally heavy that if I really say how I feel, I don't know, in those moments, I'm not prepared to handle it. And sometimes I feel like the person who's asking me may not know what to do with all of that stuff that I'm about to unpack. So I think that's some of the fear in talking about it. And you're right. We, people of color, Black and brown people, that's y'all. I know y'all know someone. We don't like to talk about it. Like, we don't want to be, we're fearful that people are going to gossip up and talk about us and look bad upon us. And Chamique, let me just say, you are like this amazing athlete with all of these kudos, right? And you turned out to be this mental health advocate. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey and what made you decide to do that and be okay with doing that? Because someone of your stature, everybody in Hollywood got to be picture perfect. And then you really got vulnerable. And in doing that, you've been able to help lots of people. So tell us about that.
Well, the beginning of it, I think as a child, just experiencing some challenges in my household. Both of my parents were drinkers. I was able to, as a young kid, see a lot. And then on top of that, me and my brother were taken away from my parents and we went to go live with my grandmother. That was a traumatic thing. Even though, everybody's saying our household is dysfunctional, that's my mom and dad. That's who we know. That was our comfort place. So that adjustment period, I really got really down. I really became internal. And luckily, my grandmother saw that, hey, something's not right. We got to get you to therapy. But you got to understand, I mean, when you talk about, growing up in my household and around my family, everyone's like, man, what happens in your household stays in your household. You don't talk to these people. And on top of that, I'm living in the inner city, in the projects, in Astoria, New York. So I'm going to the therapy center there. And this guy that I go to therapy with is a white gentleman. I think he was from Columbia University or something. And I don't identify with him. So why am I going to talk to him? And I think for me, that's when I learned to stuff my emotions and feelings to, put on that face. Everything's okay. Cause I'm like, I'm not talking to you. And that kind of followed me. I had a lot of success. Sports became like my coping mechanism. That's where I was able to let go and be free. But it also, being good at something. I used the term coached. Everybody wanted to make sure that Chamique was the star player. I want to make sure she's okay. So I never really was held accountable for the emotional issues, the emotional breakdowns that I was having. It was almost like I was protected. But as you know, going through that stuff year in and year out, it takes a toll on you. And ultimately, if you keep stuffing, if I take a bag, I keep stuffing, ultimately it's going to explode. And then here I was not equipped facing, these issues of trauma, a lot of stuff that I didn't deal with from way back that I saw, hit me as an adult. And so trying to just regain balance and focus, but also, hey, I'm a star athlete. I'm like an Olympian caliber athlete. So you're going to tell me that a person who can get their body to do anything that they want to do, like I can teach myself to run faster. You're telling me that something's the matter with my head? Like, oh man, I don't want to believe that because I'm told I have to be mentally strong. That's something I hear around my sport. And so I don't want my teammates to think something is the matter with me. So I just refused for a long time to get the help. And ultimately I had to face it because it was either get the help or not be here on this earth.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. I mean, but you hit a lot of points that I think many of us can relate to. And even with the athlete mentality, get your head in the game. So it's like as you mentioned, as a star athlete, having to focus on the game. So you can't focus on the other stuff, Chamique, right now, because we got to focus on the game. We're winning the game. You got to lead us to victory. You mentioned that sometimes having a therapist, even though you go to the therapy, if they don't look like you, or if you feel like they can't relate to your story or what you're going through, you're going to be hesitant to talk to someone like that. And I can say this, we don't have enough Black therapists, psychotherapists, psychiatrists, psychologists. Right. We don't. So for those of you who are watching and have children, or maybe if you're someone who's trying to choose a profession, listen here. Mental health is a very important issue. We need more clinicians that look like us. But that whole packing of stuff, man, I'm guilty as charged of doing that. And so, but kudos to your grandmother for recognizing that early on and helping you to get that therapy, because you're right. Black folks, we've said what happens in this house stays in this house. We don't talk about things. So I'm glad that she saw that. And so, Kiana, when it comes to like therapy, okay, first identifying we have an issue or something's wrong. And let me say this: even if you think something's wrong, you're not a broken person. You're going through something and you need help. So I want people to understand that you're not less than, you're not worthy. None of that applies. You are still a beautifully and wonderfully made. You just need some help with going through, sort of sifting through some of your traumas and emotions. And these are, like, as you said, Chamique, these are some very traumatic things, being taken away from your parents. Those are your parents. You love them regardless, even if whatever is happening. So that's very traumatic for children to be taken away from their parents. And some of us have experienced loss of jobs, death of family members, being told we were terminally ill or someone in our family is terminally ill. So these are or rape or domestic violence. And Kiana, I mean, you've actually experienced some of these things as well. Can you help people who are maybe in this state of something's wrong, but I haven't gotten help? Like, what would be your message to someone who's debating on whether they should find a therapist or what they can do to get help because they recognize something's going on, something's not right, and I need some help?
So it's funny, I was actually talking to the sales guy at Walmart earlier, and he kind of asked me a similar question. And so I told him, I said, it's almost like you just made a neutral friend, the friend who doesn't know everything about you, doesn't know your history, but they can learn it and give you a neutral perspective of things, kind of a different point of view, and they can walk you through your journey. One of the things that even I, had to learn in my education and the process of education, a lot of us have this perception that therapists are to tell you what to do with your life. But actually, we're not supposed to give you direct advice. We're just supposed to guide you in a journey of you kind of discovering what it is that you want to reach. So it's you uncovering and unpacking some things, like you said, that the past traumas, the past hurts and the pains and the things that you've really been struggling with, but unpacking those things and then really on the table, expressing and processing your thoughts and feelings about those different situations, and then getting to the place of, well, what are the goals that I want to achieve in my life to get me to a place where I'm stable, I'm feeling happy and peaceful most of the time. Because again, we're still human. One of the things I always make sure everybody knows, we're human first. So at the end of the day, it's important to know that yes, we're going to have days or stressed or days that we may feel sad and low or whatever, but at the end of the day, it's how do I get to my space where I can keep myself stable most days. And the therapy also helps you figure out what coping strategies, what are some things that you can do to help stabilize your moods and your emotions when you're feeling low, when you're feeling sad, when you're feeling angry, when you're feeling anxious. What are some of the things that you can put in place, some of your self-care practices on a day-to-day basis that helps you stay in a good place. It is important, like I said, to remove the stigmas and not think that going to therapy automatically diagnoses you as what people like to label as crazy, because the reality is it's not a lot of people that deal with the severe mental illnesses such as schizophrenia or psychosis. That's usually, the more severe mental illnesses that require a higher level of care. But going to see a therapist, you're just processing what goes on in my life, what has happened to me from my childhood that's affecting me in my current adult lifestyle, because sometimes we have to realize to break the cycle of unhealthy relationships or challenges, keeping a job or even addiction, because a lot of us don't want to talk about addiction issues and thinking we also have a misconception of that, of what addiction is. And that sometimes we have to realize if you have to go home every night and take a drink just to go to sleep, you're in an addiction cycle. So you don't have to be on the street corner, by going to the crack house. It's like people have these perceptions and stereotypes of these words and not understanding that you can still be struggling with addiction. I have met people who go to work every day, have nice, big, pretty houses, make lots of money, all of great suburban lifestyles, but they're addicts. They struggle with drug and alcohol use. And right now we're in the opiate, dependence society. So a lot of people are taking pills. They feel like, okay, I'm not doing heroin, I'm not doing crack, but I'm going to take Xanax. So, a lot of times people don't realize we're struggling with a lot of things that we're minimizing and putting the cover over. And I think even as an African American community, a lot of times we can speak to that. We have a history of, as Chamique said, don't tell what goes on in the house. You have to, what happens in the house stays in the house. And we've developed this hush hush mentality and this hush hush system that when it's time to really address something, we don't even know how to deal with it because we've gotten to that whole secret place of how we function. So,
Right.
And just your question about mental health, the difference between mental health and mental illness. Mental health is just a person's condition in regards to their psychological and emotional well-being. And then mental illness is when they're actually struggling with a disorder that affects their mood, thinking, and behavior.
Right. And I think to even piggyback on that, it actually can negatively influence their lifestyle, meaning it disrupts their ability to function socially or at work with family or friends. And so I think that's the point where we even get more concerned about when it comes to mental disorders, because it's significantly impacting your way of life. Because I think we were talking about this earlier. So just like when you have you can not feel well, you're like a little under the weather. So the way I think of that is like sometimes we can be sad and depressed. Doesn't necessarily mean you have a mental illness. And I have to say this, when we say the word mental illness, I don't like that word. I don't like that word. And it's because we've taken that word illness and put a negative spin on it because we associate illness with bad outcomes. But there are times where you can actually have a mental illness, such as like schizophrenia or something. These are actually things where, and although these are more rare, but someone can struggle with hallucinations or, things that make them dysfunctional, unable to work, unable to care for themselves, unable to care for their children. Like it really impacts them that much. But you can still have that, but that can be episodic and you can still be okay. It's like when they talk about you're positive for COVID, but you're asymptomatic. So I just want people to understand there's kind of this spectrum of things. And it's important that we talk about this so people really understand. We want to remove that negative stigma. And the way we're going to do that is to talk about this. And so Chamique, Quina was just talking about some of therapies and things like that. So can you share with us, because again, you're as a pro athlete, you can make your body do everything you wanted to, but your mind, there were things that are going on in your mind. Sounds like you were struggling with some emotions or coping with some traumas. At what point, what was the tipping point where you described going to a therapist that you couldn't resonate with? At what point did you say, like, you know what, let me try something different because I still need help?
I think I've had a couple of those, because also I went through the whole movement of, everything's fine. I'm taking my medication. I'm doing the things I need to do. And I'm thinking, oh, I'm better now. So then I would stop taking them. So I've kind of had an up and down cycle. But for me, understanding the importance of therapy, what hit was when someone told me, it was a mentor of mine, said, hey, you have to pick your therapist. Because I was a complainer. I'm like, oh my God, they don't get me. They don't understand me. That was what was in my head. No one understands what I'm going through, all that type of talk. And he told me, you have to pick your therapist like you would pick the person that you would date, the person that you were married. You got to date around. He told me to date around and figure it out. And I actually found someone that I really connected with. And I thought that it had to be a person of color, honestly. I was like, man, it got to be somebody that understands my journey, where I'm from. and it happened to be a white woman who I would have thought I had nothing in common with, but she had the skill set to help develop me as a person and teach me coping mechanisms, to really, I guess, analyze me in a sense. And I like what Quina said, because a lot of people think they're going to therapy and a therapist is going to tell them what to do. The therapist is going to give you skills, skills that allow you to go out there to cope. And for me, I got kicked out of therapy one time by her because she kicked me out. Because she said, man, you have a tremendous skill set. You have to get out there and you have to just live. Like, you get it. Like, you worked on yourself. And she goes, a lot of times people get addicted to therapy. If they really do. I had a friend, and a lot of times the whole part of the addiction to therapy, you get addicted. And then I had a friend also that had an amazing therapist, and she became attracted to her therapist, a guy.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah. And
that can make sense. You understand me. You
right.
get me.
Right. And so, once I figured that out, and I allowed that person, I would say in my space, and to look for the feedback, it really changed my life, man. And I tell my friends all the time, my friends, my Black friends, my Asian friends, like, yo, like, it's the best thing since sliced bread. Because when I met up with my Caucasian, my white friends, they're like over cocktails, like, hey girl, I got my appointment at 2:00, whatever. So I'm like, man, they just talk about it. Like, I feel safer. But when I say therapy with my homegirls, and they looking at me like, oh boy, I don't know about that. It's like, got to change our mindsets,
We do. That's interesting that you say that. But, culturally, we as a people, we've always, like we said earlier, what happens in this house stays in this house. We have to get over this hump, this obstacle of not wanting to talk about what's going on with us. It's like a pride thing, right? As if talking about things would make us like we're weak, that we're broken, and we're not, guys. This is something that, and let me say this, you shouldn't even have to wait until something's quote unquote wrong to see a therapist. This is like exercising. Like, when we talk about mental wellness, part of mental wellness, I think, there's a physical component. Make sure we're eating well, exercising, we're not abusing like cigarettes or alcohol or, those type of things, and as well as doing our checkups. So just like you'd go to your regular physician or nurse practitioner for your wellness or for treatment, you should be going to a therapist or a counselor to talk about your emotional stuff. Think of it like as an organ that we need to take care of, like your heart, your brain, like your mental state. We need to take care of that more. And ladies, just real quick, I just want to jump in these comments because everybody is saying hello, kudos. They're giving their comments about, let's see, Putin says no TV and I'm still depressed. Looks like, and a lot of people have said that they've turned off the television because they're seeing a lot of depressing images on television. That's right. We do. It's kind of a fine balance about, I think one of the things is knowing what the triggers are. When you know what can trigger your depression or anxiety or your whatever condition that you're dealing with, you know the triggers, you need to actively work on staying away from those triggers. You have to. That way it doesn't provoke those feelings that you don't want to feel. Like, for example, if you're overcoming drug use, well, you can't go down the street to the crack house and hang out with your friends because you're going to be in an environment that's going to possibly put you into relapse. So we have to do those type of things. Some people have said, let's see, gosh, yeah, we need to get over the fear. It's mentally crippling for us, crippling us for our progression. So getting over the fear of talking to people. Phonisha Wilson said we need to start embracing one another. I think that's helpful too. So, and let me ask, Chamique, when you were talking to your friends, so you had like your white friends that were just like, okay, girl, my appointment's at 2, just high five, boom. And then like maybe your sister girls, was there ever a point where they kind of got on board with you once they started to see like the progress you were making and how it was helping you? Did anybody?
Oh, yeah, of course. Like, I kept talking to them, educating them. and told them you have to make it a part of your routine. Like you said, it's a part of the whole wellness package. It's no fair. I said, think about it. You know, for those that were, like, I had a couple of friends that were married. I'm like, this is a person you can just go to and just talk about everything without being judged, you know? And, you know, it's kind of like your secret whisperer in a sense. And so they got it. I mean, I have a couple of friends that go, and, you know, not that they have, like you said earlier, Kiana, you don't have to have like serious mental health concerns. You know, everybody goes through, I believe everybody goes through seasonal depression. You know what I'm saying? For me, it's when it's, I'm gonna get too frank, but, you know, for me, it's when it's PMS time. Oh my God, I'm like emotional. I just can't, I'm just all over the place. I'm crying. I'm going through this thing, and then it goes away, and like, pop, I'm back to normal, you know? So, you know, you just got to get to know yourself. I know being in Atlanta, I went to, what's it called? First Baptist with Craig Oliver. And I went to this church, and I just remember him saying, and that was like an aha moment for me, because I had been to some churches traveling. I did the Black Suicide Conference, and, you know, it wasn't a message of people really going to therapy. It was more so marriage counseling and things of that sort. And when I heard, because they thought everything you can kind of pray away. That's, oh, you know, you can, you know, you got to pray it away, and you got to read the word and stuff. And, you know, for some people that works, but he said something, Craig Oliver, he was like, you know, it's seasonal. He goes, I've been there, you know, I've thought about like taking my life, and but when it doesn't go away, when you constantly feel that it's heavy, it's messing up relationships, it's affecting your job, that's when you need to go get some serious help. That's the point where you got to take those steps. And if you're afraid, you have to, you know, talk to somebody that you can trust. You know what I'm saying? And you know, take those steps to be better. And I think that's a fear. That's a real fear. Like, if I speak about this, if I tell a coworker or I tell a family member, are they gonna tell everyone else? But I always challenge. I know, like, the athletes that I speak with, and I always challenge them to be a great teammate, to understand kindness, to not judge and gossip about people, because at the end of the day, we don't know what people are going through. You know what I'm saying? I could sit here, you could look at me, I'm fine or whatever, and everything's good, but I could be fighting a battle internally for my life. And I have been there when I've been fighting that battle. And my teammates at that time and my friends would be like, yo, we had no idea. Why? Because I was the strong friend. I am the strong friend, and I'm the one that always checked on everybody else. And so when I'm going through it, they just didn't understand it.
Wow, that's amazing that you're able to. You know what? Many of us have done. We put that front. We have that armor on. It's like, I'm gonna go out and smile, knowing that deep down inside, like you said, that we're struggling with a lot of things. But if we can talk about this more, which what we're doing this evening, and you guys, if you're someone who's you know, going through this, or you have a friend or a family member going through this, I'm hoping that you're going to take away something from this conversation to help yourself and help other people, because we do need to talk about it more. And so you see, like, this Olympian athlete here with us, you see this expert with us, some other people who've come forward to talk about these things. So did you guys know that, you know, Michael Phelps, right, the decorated Olympian, 28 gold medalist, he struggled with depression, and he even said that he sat in his room for 3 to 5 days contemplating death at some time. Serena Williams, also, she struggled with, and these are people who've come out to talk about it. And I think that's one of the things, also acknowledging that there's an issue. Now, you don't have to come out on a major platform to say it, but coming out to someone who you can talk to it about. Ronda Rousey, the WWE fighter, former UFC champion, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, Katy Perry, Wayne Brady, Jim Carrey, Kanye West, Kim Cudi, Kendrick Lamar, J. Cole. Like, there's a list of people. Now, I know I'm naming people that are like in the spotlight, but I'm saying those names to say that even if you're someone who's like, I don't want to tell anyone because I'm afraid of what they'll think of me. These are people with public platforms who want help, who want to get better. And part of that is acknowledging that, hey, there's something wrong. And it's okay to not be okay. I think that's what we have to understand. It's okay to not be okay. Doesn't mean that you're no good, you're not worthy. Doesn't mean any of those things. It just means that you know that there's something going on and you need help. There's nothing wrong with needing help. It's not a sign of weakness. It's actually a sign that you are strong, to be able to come out and talk about those things. And so let me ask this. So Quina, we're talking about, and actually, Chamique said this earlier. You mentioned that you, as part of your regimen, that you were taking medications and you got off your medications because you felt better. I know that there are some conditions where medication is part of the regimen. Can you maybe give us a rundown of some things that, if I'm struggling with depression or anxiety, or perhaps I'm someone who has bipolar disorder, what are some of the things that people should and can anticipate as part of a treatment? Because it's not always pills. Sometimes people think a magic pill is going to go away, but that's just one piece of the recipe. What are some other things that people can do to help manage these things?
So for me, I'm gonna start with depression and anxiety because for me, I have personally witnessed clients who started off on medications, and as they got more stabilized and build up and strengthen their skills, they were actually able to get tapered off of the medications. And so for me, even as a mental health professional, I personally try to advocate to go in that direction, to where if you happen to have a disorder that you were diagnosed with, that you're able to eventually get stabilized without the need of medications. I'm a big advocate for that, but it's mainly for just primarily like depression, anxiety, or addiction. The other disorders, though, that you may need medications for, and maybe probably for the rest of your life, would be bipolar, schizophrenic, psychosis, and just other different conditions. And a lot of times it's very, very common for people with bipolar to do the whole back and forth with their medications, because the biggest thing is, and I know this even from people who are close to me that have, this disorder, they struggle with the acceptance of the diagnosis. And so what happens is, when they're struggling with, I don't want this to, they view it as a label, as a negative label that has been stamped onto them. And so when you're struggling with the acceptance, you resist the treatment. And so a lot of times the need for medications is found to be necessary, but at the same time, it's resisted by the person in need, because they don't want to accept the fact that they're dealing with this particular illness. Because they don't want people to treat them differently, their family, their friends, or other people that may find out. So they're struggling with the acceptance of the diagnosis. With depression and anxiety, I believe that, like explaining to you earlier, there's different levels. You can have mild, moderate, or severe. You can have depression, single episode, where you're just responding to a particular life event that's taking place. Because I do believe all of us have experienced some level of depression and anxiety. Even in this pandemic, a lot of times we get anxious about things. Oh, what's going to happen if I get too close to somebody, or they cough near me, or whatever? That can cause feelings of anxiety. It doesn't mean that you struggle with anxiety all the time. It just means that in that moment you were experiencing it. If you're anticipating starting a new job, or another life change, like getting married or something like that, you'll have some anxieties about it, because that's natural. You're human. You're human with emotions. With depression, you're responding to life losses. So the reality is, life is going to continue to happen. Life is going to have a lot of unexpected events that are going to transpire in your life that you don't really have control over. So your response normally is natural. If you are diagnosed with more severe illnesses that require you to take medications on a regular basis, the importance of being compliant is significant. And sometimes, again, you can start off with certain doses where your doctor may see, okay, you're doing so well for this extended period of time, you may be able to, have a reduction in your dosage levels. You may not need the high dose that you were once initially prescribed. So it really just depends, but the multiple interventions is necessary. So again, don't just think, oh, I'm just going to go to the psychiatrist. They're going to give me my prescription refill every 30 days. And that's it. You still need to be able to have that therapist or someone else that you can still process, your experiences with, again, continue to build your skills and your coping strategies for life so that when things come at you, you know how to handle and respond to them.
Right. And I think you make a good point. So guys, when we're talking about, and I think we kind of segued more into the mental illness. And again, I don't necessarily like that word, but if you're someone who has, like, for example, ADHD, schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, like these type of diseases can take many forms. I know with bipolar, there's different types. You can sometimes be more manic, you can be more depressive, or you can have sometimes a combination of both. And so your treatment plan will really be individualized based on what you're going through and what's going on. So that's why it's so important that you have to see a therapist, a psychiatrist, a psychologist, someone who specializes in these things. Or if anything, start with going to your just initial healthcare provider, because you're gonna need a combination of things, and depending on what you're going through and how much you need to unpack, how it's affecting your life, your treatment's going to be individualized. But I will say this, and then as an advanced practice nurse, I take care of people more so like with heart disease, right? You have high blood pressure. I know there are going to be days when your blood pressure looks perfect, but I still need you to take that blood pressure medication every day so you can maintain that heart healthy blood pressure. So, think of some of the medications that you might need when it comes to managing your mental wellness and these conditions that, do not stop your medications unless advised to by your healthcare provider. Now, I know, Chamique, you said that you kind of started and stopped your medications because you felt better. So you did that independently on your own.
Yeah, and every time I had an effect. It had an effect, and it was a negative effect, because the medicine would be gone, then I'm spiraling down, and then being a person who lives with a bipolar disorder, that high is a dangerous thing for me. And then when I come down, not being able to get out of bed. But I tell a lot of people, the thing about it, and things that I learned from my personal experiences, I have to learn to communicate with my doctor. Doctors are humans. People have different biologies. It's like, hey, this does not make me feel good. This is not working for me. I in the mornings, I feel like I can't get out of bed, and we have to understand that. I just thought about an old school thing my grandmother used to tell me, Chamique, a closed mouth does not get fed. You have to learn to speak up. It's a partnership. And I think for a lot of people, they go, the medicine makes them feel a certain type of way, because I know that, because that happened to me. And I'm like, man, I ain't taking this stuff no more, man. Forget that. And I think we count ourselves out. We have to learn a skill set. And I think that just takes growth. That just takes a little bit of understanding. Stay away from WebMD.
Yourself.
Oh man, it's so many people that I know is like, hey, I had a friend tell me once, I think I have schizophrenic disorder, and I'm listening, and my dad actually lives with schizophrenic disorder, and I'm like, believe me, I said, I'm not a doctor, you got to go talk to somebody, but I can almost bet that that's not what you have.
Yeah.
So it's just being able to communicate certain things to one another, to your doctors.
So it sounds like communication is very much the key, whether it's communication with your doctor, communication with your therapist. One of the key things that needs to happen is communication, because when we hold this all in, when we bottle it all up, eventually it's going to explode and overload. And it becomes too much. And just real quick, ladies, I want to go into the comments here. Gosh, there have been so many comments. Chamique Tina Griffin says, Chamique Holdsclaw, it's great to see you and hear that you're doing well. I love watching you ball. Forever a fan. That's cool.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Let's see. Tina said, okay, this is one reason I haven't gone to a therapist. They don't look like us. But Tina, as Chamique was just saying, date around, date your therapist, date a couple therapists, not literally date, but you know what I'm saying. Go and meet someone, and this goes for your therapist or for your dentist, for any type of healthcare provider, whoever's providing you a service. You're not going to take your car to the auto dealer if they treat you bad every time you go there. You're going to find someone else to go to. So the same thing with our health. Make sure you find someone that you feel comfortable with. Oh my gosh, so many comments. Let's see. Q Kind says, the first step with all this is being honest with yourself and not being afraid to speak out and talk to someone about it. Let's get this mental illness. That's the name for it, no matter what. So it sounds like Q is saying, "Hey guys, let's move forward. Let's take care of ourselves." And then D Blessed says, "I think we all have some kind of mental disorder." Now, and Kiana, you chime in if I get this wrong. Now, I think hands down, flat, I'm gonna go ahead and call it facts. We've all dealt with some type of anxiety, depression, and stress, right? Those are the most common issues, because even though it's been situational, like my mother passed earlier this year, I was very depressed and sad about it. That's situational. But I think where the concern comes in is when, and as Chamique was saying, when something lasts for a long period of time and starts to negatively affect your ability to function at work, at school. These are times where, like, and these are some of the things that I'll hear patients say, like, I can't focus. Like, I'll read something and I just can't focus, or it's affecting my memory. And it's not allowing them to be functional citizens. That's when that depression is so significant that we need to help you bring it under control, so that you're not up all night crying all night, and that you're not eating, or you're not overeating, right? These are behaviors that are in response to this depression. And there's so many different types of mental illnesses and how they manifest. So the minute you feel like something's not right or something's off a little bit, and no one can tell us that, only you know that. So, and rather get checked out, and perhaps it's just something situational. And which, by the way, Chamique, you mentioned something seasonal. So, like, for example, in the fall and winter months, especially in areas that have less sunshine, we have seasonal affective disorder, which people will go into kind of a seasonal depression. Guys, but we're not going to know these things. I mean, we have these two lovely ladies talking to us about their experience being a clinician and being someone who's received care. But you need to go and be seen by someone, talk to someone. It's going to be very important, because we don't want this to get to a point where, you start contemplating whether you should live or not live. And there are, people who have contemplated suicide. And by the way, we want people to know, and I have it here on my notes, guys. I'm going to put it in the chat box. If you or someone is experiencing thoughts of harming yourself, and you need help to talk to someone, there is a 24-hour hotline, the SAMHSA hotline. Oh, here we go. Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration. I'm going to put the number in the chat box that you can call 24/7 if you are experiencing these low feelings and don't have anyone to talk about. We don't want you to take your life. We want you to get help, because that's part of why we're having this conversation. We want to remove the stigma, and let you know that you're not alone in this. You're definitely not alone. I mean, Chamique, did you ever, when you were going through what you were going through, did you feel like you were alone at times?
Oh, definitely. I felt alone. I felt like nobody understands what I'm going through. And the crazy part about it, the interesting part rather, is that I had such tremendous family support and I had friends, but that's what this illness does to you. It puts this little crafty little sucker, I like to call it, on your shoulder, and it's telling you, like, you're nothing, you can't do this. And it's to the point, well, even though my dad's schizophrenic, I didn't believe in the whole mental health thing because I wasn't educated on it. I'm thinking, like, growing up in New York, like, man, that man's crazy. This was what I grew up, seeing and stuff. So when I started going through these challenges, a part of it was like educating myself and learning things. And so it really just changed. It created this shift, in myself. It made me a kinder person. Not that I wasn't kind before. It made me kinder, more empathetic to others. So I guess for me, I was supposed to go through this because it's just been, I guess, in a sense, like being able to help others. I thought, all right, yes, basketball has, put me in front of, hundreds of thousands of people, but this being able to help a kid or help a parent or whatever, not take their lives, get the help that they need is, I always say, it's like better than a game-winning shot in a championship game. It's just, being honest. The guy said, you know, we have to be honest because a lot of us are carrying generational stuff, man. This is embedded, and it's embedded in our DNA. And I tell myself, me and my wife have an 8-month-old, and I said, yo, I know that you can't control what's going to happen to your child. He may have emotional issues or whatever, but I'll be damned if I won't pass him a skill set and get him the help that he needs and be there to guide him and have those tough conversations, because there's so much going on. You know, the gentleman also mentioned moving away from the television. You know, I did that, and I'm not on social media right now because watching, you know, Black people harmed and all that, it started playing on my psyche. It was making me angry. It started changing me. So I'm like, I can't see this again. I can't see this anymore. I don't want to hear about all these stories. Instead, I want to read. I want to educate myself. Like I was reading a book, like you mentioned earlier, Alice, I'm reading a book that one of my friends wrote, and she talks about like health, eating the right proper foods, you know? So I'm always telling my friends, because I eat a pretty clean diet, but I'm like, man, you know, you get down, we know those comfort foods, the ice cream, the pizza, the burger, boy, it will really affect your mental health. You know what I'm saying? Yep. And so we just got to be aware of that as a culture, you know, and really talk about those things with our families and not be afraid, man. I get frustrated, you know, when, you know, I'm around even some family members to this day after everything they know that I've been through. And it's just like, I don't know. And I'm like looking at my older auntie's kids. I'm looking at their kids now, and I'm like, I'm tired of this. So I tell my little cousins, yo, call me if you need anything. If you don't have money for therapy, because that's a big issue also.
Oh, yeah.
Right. I mean, Kiana, how many people you know? I don't know. Like, I know you go to therapy sometimes from some therapist friends of mine. Like they have to do the sliding scales and things of that sort. Like some people of color just don't have the resources.
Yes, Kiana, can you tap into that? Because I know that people don't have access to the healthcare for just even like blood sugar, diet, you know, blood pressure and those type of things, let alone mental services, which are considered a specialty, So how are people getting to therapy? Are there hacks on how to get to therapy if you don't have access?
It is tough. I've had people express different challenges where they don't know how to even utilize their insurance to seek referrals. And because I'm like, you can just call your insurance provider and they can give you referrals in your local area. And some people don't even know that. They don't know the policies that they're paying for, what they have access to, or even how to use those benefits. And then those who may not have health care, yes, we do, you know, as therapists try to offer, you know, reasonable prices. And I tell clients all the time, don't let, I really actually have really, really low rates on purpose because I don't want them to be a barrier. But I tell people, even if my rates still are what you may feel unreasonable or a challenge, don't let that be the barrier to stopping you from getting the help you need. If we need to work something out, I will, because one thing I don't want people to do is to struggle and continue to remain in a cycle of unhealthy thinking and behaviors and experiences because they don't have access. We do need more in our communities. We don't have enough that are just targeting our African American communities. We don't have enough resources because we don't have a large pool of African American therapists out here. And so unfortunately, we are struggling now. I personally have a strong network of African American therapists that I know here in Atlanta area that's steadily building and strong and building up, but it's something that we have to be able to be willing to work together and collaborate and not focus on being each other's competition, but working together, knowing that we need to edify the community because it's important for us to come together to educate because that's how we remove the stigmas. That's how we get people getting to the place where they're comfortable having conversations about what's going on with them, what their struggles are, things that you're starting to realize. Because as you start to reflect on your childhood, you start realizing some things, they weren't really right or normal, but you just kind of had to be okay with it. And so now you're like in a space where you're like, okay, that wasn't good. And so, like I said, you just now you're in a space where you can educate the generations behind you. You can educate your children, your nieces, your nephews, or your cousins, because it's important that they know and understand. Well, we don't realize our younger generation, they're very in tune with mouth. The unfortunate part of it is a lot of them have figured out a way to manipulate the system. So, like for me, working at a mental health hospital here in Georgia, I dealt with a lot of kids that came in the hospital in the middle school age range. The unfortunate part was they knew how to say, "Oh, I want to kill myself," to try to manipulate their parents into doing things they wanted to do, or they created depression and anxiety clubs with their friends to do self-harm, activities. And so we have to be mindful and watchful with our children. They're smarter than we give them credit for. So we have to be able to understand that what they're seeing and hearing on TV and social media, even about mental health, we have to be able to have open conversations with them about it, and to help them understand that no, you don't want to be afraid of mental health intervention, but you don't want to figure out how to manipulate the system either. So it's important. I do think, it's a lot we have to do in our African American community as far as bringing awareness. How do we bring in resources? For me, I am very, spiritual. I'm heavy, in the church. So for me, I'm also educating in the church, and getting them to get to a space where they're comfortable with talking about how do you balance. Yes, you need prayer. Yes, you can, read the word, but at the same time, sometimes you need therapy too. And so having the balance of understanding that it's okay to have spirituality and therapy at the same time.
Absolutely.
And you can have that balance. Okay.
And Quina, you raised several good points there, and I know we're coming up on our time, so I want to just hit these points real quick. You guys, if you're someone who feels like you've tried to access your healthcare system, you're still meeting barriers with maybe you're not getting the referrals, it's not covered in your plan, those type of things, there are options for, to pay. Obviously, you're paying out of pocket for a therapist, but let me ask, how much that Louis Vuitton bag costs? How much do them, those Jordans cost? I know them video games. So all I'm saying, this is no knock, this is no diss. I'm just keeping it real. We have to look at our value system. Okay. If your mental health, your well-being, if you want to stop you crying every night, you unhappy, you toe up to the floor, you're going to need to invest something into that treatment. So, you know what, maybe you don't get your hair done, rebraided every month. Maybe you skip a month, whatever, wear it natural. Whatever the may be, we know how to make $1 out of 15 cents. We know how to pinch and save money, and just take, even if you go for an evaluation, even one visit, you deserve that visit with a specialist who can talk to you about what's going on, because you need to be here, you need to be well, you need to be alive so you can enjoy those other things. Don't allow material things to be more valuable or more important than your mental health and well-being, because you by far are the number one top priority, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. Okay, allow that to fall in line, and then you'll be in a position where financially you can do those things to continue to do the video games and the Gucci bags and which, by the way, I don't have a Gucci bag because they cost so much, but all of those things. And for our children, parents, we need to understand these are unprecedented times. Kids have been their jobs have been stripped away from them too. So when we talk about the economy's closed, their schools are closed. That's a kid's job. They go there to socialize. That's their work. They go to school, proms, sports. Like my son plays football. He's traumatized that he can't play football in his senior year. Like you say these things, so we are looking also not at ourselves, but as our family and generations to come, what impact will these have on our children? So not only will you need therapy, maybe your children need therapy. Maybe you could do family therapy. Either way, we as Black people need to just realize and accept that we need to talk about this. We need to talk about, and I don't even know what this is. This could be different in every household, but something is stirring in your family, whether it's something like a biological mental illness, whether it's just stress, anxiety, depression, anger, right? A lot of people are angry right now. Variety things, social injustice, the
Mm-hmm.
president, you know, shootings that we're watching, all of these things are trauma. And then we have childhood trauma from maybe some people experienced rape or they witnessed a murder, something unjust happened. So we have a lot to unpack. And so I'm so glad we've been able to have this conversation. There's been so many great comments in the chat box. People talking about going to church, healing is a and Carissa said healing is a process. As long as you are aware and taking steps to deal with your struggles, you are on the right
Mm-hmm.
track. You are right, Carissa. You know,
Mm-hmm.
all one built in a day. We may not be able to fix everything in 24 hours, but taking even one step is important. And so as I know we're going to be wrapping up, but Chamique, if you could just tell us, I know you're pro athlete and then you became this mental health advocate. Can you tell us quickly about some of the activities that you do to help champion this message and help other
Mm-hmm.
people?
Well, so what I do is I speak a lot of colleges. First, it started out as just speaking to student athletes, but then I realized like this was a big thing. It's bigger than just being in athletics, and so we opened it up to general student populations, and so it's just been really going really well. A lot of times, what happens is people want to hear stories of people that have gone through these things. So we'll have a psychiatrist or psychologist there. But they always tell me that they're like laugh about it. They're like, well, you know, the students are not going to ask me any questions. But it's meeting people where they're at. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Being able to have a professional there, someone that has experienced this. And so for me, being able to take my platform and now expand it to professional sports. So we go WNBA, NBA, NFL, and also being able to assist with a great nonprofit, the JED Foundation, which helps suicide prevention on college campuses. He is out of here in New York. So just being able to work in and with their programming and just spread the word. I'm just big on changing the conversation. I'm no one special. Like I always say, this could be a thousand people, you know, in my place doing this, but I think the thing about it is being real. You know, I don't get up there. It's nothing that's rehearsed. I'm going to be honest. You know, one thing we didn't talk about today is the mask, and Quina brought it up, but it's real, y'all. We will sit there because we don't want to face these things. I've done it, the drinking, the smoking weed, the sexual activities. We can talk about all that. So think about that. Like, you know, you start to see your friends practicing irregular behavior. Talk to them about it. You know what I'm saying? Because you know, this is just something that I think that we can really like close in on in our community, and I think we will see this powerful change, this whole shift, and where we will become whole as one, as a people. Right now, we're just like, oh, this person's over there in their box sad. This person's unhappy. This person's a drug addict, and we look at each of these, you know, I'll say compartments different. Like we're better. We have to realize, you know how they say, if I could be a person in my family that's very successful, but if the other person in my family is struggling, how does that really help us, right?
Right.
So just become really aware and conscious of that, and that's how we're gonna go forth as Black people, just helping one another, man. This is real, my Black people.
Yes. Thank you so much. Again, some great comments here. Awesome guest speakers, very insightful. Thank you. Shaniqua, Quina, and Alice. A lot of people getting a lot of tools and tips from you ladies. Thank you so much for sharing. And so as we were just scratching the surface. Hope, and you guys, we do this, you know, we have the Exam Room with Nurse Alice every Monday. This is a topic of, you know, mental health and wellness, something that we're going to be talking about frequently as the weeks go on. But Quina, you know, you actually treat people, you talk to people every day. I know you hear and see a lot. As we're closing out, any advice for someone who is contemplating therapy or getting help or just kind of stuck with what to do next?
Of course, first, you know, remove the stigma. Don't get consumed with being self-conscious about what other people are going to say. First of all, if you go to reach out to a therapist, nobody has to know right away. You don't have to make a special announcement to your
No,
friends, like, hey, I'm going to go look for a therapist today. I
right.
mean, that's your business. It's no different than if you think something was going on with you physically and you needed to call your doctor. You don't make a special announcement to everybody to say, hey, I think something's going on. So, I mean, it's okay to do that. It's okay to, like you said earlier, it's okay, because the reality is are dealing with a lot, right? Just this year alone, we've experienced a lot of trauma nationwide and worldwide. But, on top of that, we're probably already sitting on things that we've been sitting on since childhood. And so sometimes when you want to change and a shift in your life, when you want to feel like, I want something different, I'm tired of these unhealthy relationships, I'm tired of the mood swings of being happy one minute and severely depressed another. I'm tired of the panic attacks, because a lot of times we have panic attacks and don't want to admit that we're having these panic attacks in response to situations, circumstances that are happening around us. So it's okay to say that I'm not okay. It's okay to seek intervention from other resources. There's a wealth of resources out there that you can Google. You can contact an insurance provider for. If you just really don't know. Earlier, somebody texted me and asked me, hey, I know someone that lacks resources and homeless, but they need mental health intervention. What do I do? So
Right.
it's okay to even ask a friend that may have the answer, just to even help someone else. So it's okay to ask. It's okay to be humble and just say, I need help. And it does not make you a bad person. Like you said, it doesn't take away from your work. If anything, you're valuing yourself more and really upping yourself in the work category, just knowing that, hey, I need to work on me. This is part of my self-care regimen. Like you said, we spend money on shoes, purses, hair products, these, products to make us look good on the outside. What are some of the investments we're going to make to work on ourselves on the inside? And so that's what you have to look at. I'm investing in myself. I'm doing something to make myself better and take myself to another level. Because one of the things, the goals for me, my therapeutic process is to help you healing, but to get you to your purpose, to find real meaning in your life, and what is something that you can do now to make you happy and make you feel fulfilled, and be able to be a testament to someone else, to be able to then pay it forward to how else. And now that I'm in a good space, now I can help someone else and lend them a hand in their journey.
Exactly. And Shaniqua, some closing statements from you to people who are listening and might need some help.
I'll just say this. I mean, Kiana, that was just awesome. And thank you for your words today, because, people think because, you speak about these things and I talk about them. I live with bipolar disorder. It's not going anywhere. And so I have to personally, check in sometimes. I talk to my therapist like every 2 weeks and make sure I'm doing well. So a lot of the things you said today just like reinforce things and made me even open up my mind, like, okay, I got to focus and I got to do better here. So I thank you for that. But I'll just say, for me, it's just remembering tough times don't last, but tough people do. And my Coach Pat Summit, told me that. And when I was at my low, I always thought, I can push, I can get through this. Now, I can't do it by myself, but that allowed me to open up and say, hey, I need help. Can you help me? And I just clawed my way back. And we all I believe have that resiliency inside of us. So, better days are ahead if you're struggling. I know it's tough. It's tough. Believe me, I know. But I believe with prayer, with support, and understanding yourself and educating yourself, there's a better tomorrow.
Thank you so much. And you guys, Tina Griffin says, y'all need to have a Zoom session so we can ask more questions. And you guys, we've actually gone over our hour, but this was so good. So good. I know. And again, I have to say thank you to my guests. They have been amazing. Thank you also for being vulnerable and sharing some of your stories. Because I think some of us telling our stories helps give someone else permission to tell their stories, because then they feel like, okay, I'm not alone. although it feels like it sometimes, you guys, you are not alone in this. People have experienced similar things and similar traumas. And as Chamique was saying, everyone has an ounce of resiliency in there. And as long as you can ask for help, I mean, even if you take a baby step, like Quina was saying, you are on the right path. The goal is that we want you to, identify that there's something going on and just get the help that you need, because we want you to live a happier and healthier life. And a lot of that starts with your mental wellness. I know people say like your heart and lungs, and that's important too, but listen, you can have healthy heart and healthy lungs, but mentally, if you're having problems with your emotions, feeling anxious, and all of these things, that can negatively impact your life. We want better for you. Okay. And so just real quick for our guest, Chamique, we'll start with you. Can you tell the people where can they follow up with you, catch more of what you're doing so they can stay connected?
Well, I'm on all social media, the Instagram, the Twitters, and I don't use Facebook, but my handle is chold1, so that's CHOLD1, and you can contact me there.
Okay, thank you. And Quina?
So my business page on Instagram, it's on Instagram. You can Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter. I am Power to Heal _ LLC on Instagram, and I'm Quina _ Empower on Twitter. And pretty much you can just look me up, Quina Howell, on Facebook, and you should be able to pull me up. So yeah, I'm on all the social media platforms as well.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much, ladies. I mean, Dorothea Shearer said, "Hello, beautiful ladies. Enjoyed the video." Nancy Williams said, "This is a real eye opener." D Bless said, "This has been very good for me tonight. Thank you all. I am focusing on my business that God has given me. All this is new. My business is mustard seed faith, and we all need to find that little bit of faith." And guys, the comments go on and on. If we didn't get to your question, we didn't get to your comments, not because it wasn't important, it's because there were so many and this conversation was good. We will go back and try to answer as many questions as possible. I want to thank everyone for stepping into the exam room with Nurse Alice. We're here every Monday, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Please send your questions, your comments, add it below. You can watch the replay on Facebook or my YouTube channel at youtube.com/Ask Nurse Alice. And please keep sending your questions, comments, and things you want to talk about and want to hear, because we really want to have a platform where we can talk about the health and wellness things that are important to you so you can live a healthier and happier life. So guys, I'm Nurse Alice. As always, it's my pleasure and privilege to speak with you every Monday. So please continue to be kind to one another, make healthy choices. And until next time, live well, my friends. Bye.
All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.